After hearing some of these speeches, presentations, which are extraordinary, by the way, the confrontation of different subjects, I don't know what you think, but for me it has been an amazing morning and early afternoon. So welcome, everybody. After hearing all of this, I don't know how you feel, but I feel like we should just basically all take off to Mars and thankfully and just start over from scratch, maybe. And thankfully we have Elon Musk to help us with that, and Richard Branson and some other geniuses. Anyways, as a talent advisor, as a leadership advisor that I have been for the last 25 years or so, focusing on the human component, on human capital, on leadership capital, on talent, both in executive search positions, consulting, and now more as a talent futurist, as I like to call myself, because I'm passionate about what's going to happen. I have 2 daughters, and I agree with you, Larissa. I think that's going to be the future, and I'm not thinking about dropping the ball myself, but I think we have a responsibility to pass on. So extraordinary speech, because I think that's the main responsibility that we have is with our daughters, but our sons too, I think, in terms of educating them, in terms of gender parity. So anyways, I'm going to shift to something else, which is neurotechnology. The guest speaker I'm introducing today, I think, has a fascinating subject on the table. For me, someone who's been, really focusing on human capital and the human touch and the human connection and talent coming from, individuals and professionals and how they develop their careers and guiding them through that process. I think this subject is going to be an amazing subject to think about, at least fascinating for me, to think how, and I'll just leave it on the table before I formally introduce Katrin-Cécile. What does it mean in terms of talent? Talent management and building careers and upskilling and reskilling. Up until now, really, talent has been developed and, skill development has gone through, humans, right? It's been enhanced by technology, but I have to say that now I think there's a new paradigm and there's new considerations to take. And the subject that you're going to talk about, Katrin-Cécile, I think has a lot to do with it. It has to do with brain hacking. Some of you may know what it means, some of you not. She's going to clarify, and she's going to basically give us a lot of food for thought. So just giving you a little bit more information about her. Although, I was talking, some of you may have heard of brain hacking before. You may have heard of Elon Musk's company called Neuralink that wants to plant chips into the human brain. This gives us a lot of food for thought, and it certainly brings a big ethical subject on the table. Although neurotechnology is still a field that is not very well known, it pursues the goal of digitally networking our brain via interfaces. It has received little attention into the ethical discourse so far. Our next speaker wants to change that. She is well informed about the innovations of neurotechnology and has even had experiments carried out on her brain herself. And I'm very curious about that and how you can tell us how that was done and what the results were or the outcome. Katrin-Cécile Ziegler is a digital economist, journalist, and human rights activist from Germany. And I want to add to that, very serious about what she's talking about. She graduated from the renowned University of Heidelberg and worked for 15 years as an executive in industry for NGOs and media. Her journalistic achievements have received several awards. She is a member of the German Women Leadership Network, We Are Panda, and the Association of Mensa. As a mentor, she gives support to young female leaders and founders. Katrin-Cécile is a very experienced speaker, and she's very used to doing these presentations, as I mentioned. She's hosted for digital topics and has worked for various German ministries and DAX corporations. Also, she is a guest lecturer in neuroeconomics and digital ethics at the Swiss University of Economics in Zurich. Finally, the innovative healing chances of neurotechnology are impressive, she says. On the other hand, the impacts of mental privacy are ethically questionable. Katrin-Cécile clarifies both sides in a comprehensible manner and recently held a TED Talk on the subject, and you will tell us about that. Today, she will talk to us about how our neurotechnology could affect us and ask whether our legal system is still an adequate answer to these developments. And I would like to add on a personal note, I don't think it's only legal. From my talent standpoint, as a talent specialist, as a talent advisor, I think there's many considerations. You know, are we thinking about augmenting talents, people's talents, and how is that going to happen? And how are we handling that situation from an ethical perspective? Okay, so let me enter without further ado. Welcome.
Thank you so much for your introduction, Marielle, and thanks for having me. I'm experienced, but not in English, but I will do my best. First of all, I would like to start with a topic that's maybe threatened with extinction, and that's the secret. On the average, every one of us has 13 secrets, so really personal, deep secrets, and 5 of them you will keep your entire life. Those are secrets born of your strongest emotions, fears, trauma, sexual preferences, or maybe also dreams of another life. And your secrets, your private thoughts, make you who you are, yeah? Your individuality, your personality, and also your vulnerability. And that's why you protect it with the strongest, impenetrable firewall there is. And that's your brain. So no one can read it. Huh? True freedom and true security only exists in the mind. There is no other place. And that's why it is our source of stability. It's sacrosanct. And frankly, we take this refuge as granted and never bother to question it. But what if that should change? Imagine there is someone in your mind and can read your thoughts. That sounds like science fiction, but it's more real than you think. For example, take your decisions. Your decisions, and some of them, are predictable 11 seconds before you consciously make them. This device, combined with machine learning, can do that, and is a common practice in neuromarketing. Your brain areas provide a wealth of reading material, such as your beliefs or your political leanings, if you are a Republican or a Democrat. All this is possible to read. And it's also possible to manipulate your beliefs by transcranial magnetic stimulation, or to anticipate, for example, your buying behavior. But since you rarely go shopping or to vote while in the CT machine, there is little risk of manipulation. But all the same, never underestimate your brain's technological pathways. Imagine you have had an accident, and you can no more move, and you can no more communicate, but you can still hear and feel and think. But your family doesn't know if you can hear them. And still they have to decide about your life support. That's really a desperate situation, and the next device could help your family, to save your life. This PCI not only measures your consciousness level, but can read your answers to yes or no questions as you think them. I tried it myself, and it's impressively precise. I could even control letters on a keyboard just using the strength of my thoughts alone. So it's really a huge help, especially for people in a vigilant coma, but also for paralyzed people. But after, I ask myself, what does it mean if it is abused as a lie detector? And such a device, also with artificial intelligence, has also been tested as a pilot at the Hungarian border by the European Commission, but just hardly known. So if we use a BZI or AI, artificial intelligence, as a lie detector, what will become of our right of silence then? Also, Silicon Valley has been striving to decode the human brain since quite some time. So enormous sums are invested in neurotechnology, and patents have increased 500% over the last few years. So imagine if Facebook, Google, Amazon, or Apple could convince a mere 1% of their billions users to use brain-computer interfaces while surfing, that would be the greatest neuroscience research study of all time, and that science itself can only dream of. So, on the other hand, you could ask who wants to spend their time in a wired, gooey, unsexy bathing cap. And now you might think, and who gives her consent to take a photo with? I don't know her. But anyway, there are more elegant options. For example, this BCI. It's a product of a US-American startup, and it's commercially marketed to measure concentration levels, for example, of athletes, or also as a practical support to people with attentiveness disorders, such as DHD. So that's really amazing. And an elementary school in China, they were so delighted, they immediately hooked up all school kids. No more daydreaming, either you're concentrating or you blink. I would like to have that now for you. But the same data grants access to other informations. For example, fears, grief, excitement, depression, so your state of mind. In these cases, how can we speak of voluntary action? It's an act of coercion, whether explicit or implicit. But there are those who privately use and willingly use PCI, so namely gamers. Esport and neurogaming is a growing market. And what users don't know and certainly don't want is that neurogaming not only allows to access your performance, it also gives answers to direct questions concerning stored in your brain. So PIN numbers, banking data, location, and identity. That's proven by a scientific experiment, completely without your knowledge, simply by playing a game. And it is possible for hackers to slip through security gaps accessing this data. And once identified, there's a 94% probability that your neurodata can be traced to you, because your neurodata is unique. And some might think, so what? I'm not an e-gamer, but there are still other approaches to read some of your thought processes. For example, a nice little detour over your muscles by means of sensors and artificial intelligence. This device makes silent speech possible. And also not, for very talkative persons as my husband, it would be really an innovation. But who else? Actually, he's not my husband because he never asked me, so all my hope is on this BCI. But who else is interested and is financing such a research study? What do you think? So it's Facebook. Facebook has a team of 60 engineers working for years on building a BCI. And a few weeks ago, Facebook acquired a brain computing startup for nearly $1 billion. So Facebook wants to be among the winners of the next big device, and that's BCI. But yet, all of the aforementioned examples have two practical disadvantages. So first, the device is visible. And second, we would have much more accurate data and precise control if we penetrated the skull. So let's do it. A deep brain stimulation implants an electrode directly in the brain. So it can predict epileptic seizures, it can heal depression, and also reactivate the memory of dementia patients. So it's a great achievement. But some patients have reported post-operative reactions that are completely out of character. They have told they've actually lost their sense of self, their identity. So imagine what a weapon. US military, for example, has been studying neurotechnology for a long time. And this is a minimally invasive procedure, so you hardly feel it. There is an implant with a little or no risk that makes its own way to the brain traveling through a vein. A mere 4 millimeter, it's smaller than a paperclip and controls, for example, the brain sector governing movement and has the potential to animate paralysis patients. And also it records every teeny little movement of your brain sector and body. So it's the perfect surveillance. So technology itself, of course, is not threatening. Its applications are. And every advancement has a dual use aspect, so we must promote the medical progress and democratic access to. Neurotechnology might be one of the greatest human innovations, I'm sure, but so are the risks, especially when manipulated by commercial, forensic, and military intentions. And there is cause for concern, since sufficient legal protection is not yet in place, and we've made such a mistake before. Think of social media, Alexa, or your mobile. So we have grown accustomed to these data hoovers, and we can hardly turn back time. But we should not repeat this fault. At this point, though, we still have a chance to install prudent regulations protecting neurodata before the technology spreads to mass consumption, which is bound to happen. Why? Because neurodata opens the floodgates to another life, full of convenience. And this is what human nature aspires for. And therefore, neurotechnology opens unprecedented business models with huge financial gains. So, you as a lawyer, you know in Europe there is a precautionary principle that means until the long-term technological effects are not clearly defined, we are to proceed with extreme caution. But in all likelihood, companies will choose locations where these principles do not apply and where military co-funding is a common practice. So let's have a look what kind of data neurodata is. Obviously, neurodata seems to be sensitive data to all non-lawyers, but in Europe, the list of laws governing sensitive data is highly exclusive, and neurodata is not on it. So according to current laws, neurodata is as worthy of protection as that. It's your shoe size. Which is why we need a new approach, and we need a global approach. So even the currently existing human rights are not sufficient. They emerge from a time prior to our technological age, and they assume that no one is able to penetrate your mind. But technological progress is outracing time. So it exists a well-founded legal argumentation by scientists for the justified demand for a new human rights, and I would be happy to send you the link, and also I printed a few copies for you. So for lack of time, I just present the results of their proposal as your food of thought. So towards new human rights in the age of neurotechnology, we need the right to mental privacy, to protect information generated below the threshold of voluntary control, tailored on the characteristics of brain information and mind-reading technologies. So the brain must remain the strongest firewall there is. So no cybersecurity without your brain. Think of the example with the e-gamers. Second, the right to mental integrity. It's protected by the European Charter of Fundamental Rights, Article 3, but there's no explicit reference made to neurotechnology-related practices. So, and the manner of impact is comparable to that of genetics and other biomedical practices. Think of deep brain stimulation, you lose your identity. The right to psychological continuity is the first one. It is closely related to the right to mental integrity, but also applies to emerging scenarios that do not directly involve neural or mental harm, because the mental processes themselves are modulated by neurotechnology, so we don't realize the harm anymore. So the three are the proposal of some scientific experts, and I would like to underline this with a philosophic statement, because I told you too at the beginning, if there's one thing that's threatened in a digital future with extinction, so I think it is the secret. And if we ask who are we without our personal secrets, we can say there would be no interiority and there would be no subjectivity. So we would lose our thoroughly unique dimension of consciousness, and a dimension not found in the rest of reality. I think interiority is probably the most valuable asset humanity has, because it means dignity. And I would say let's respect and protect it. Thank you.